Oh, this is chapter 9. It is not actually chapter 9. Sorry, it is chapter 15, section 3. It's my new book. All right, so letter writing in the field of accountancy. We kind of, oh, this is the wrong one. I need cover letters, not letters. Sorry. Much better. All righty, so writing for employment is what we are going to actually be reviewing. These are these cover letters, these letters of application, as the book calls them, right? So essentially, these are going to be documents that you use to kind of as a companion document for your resumes, right? So you submit your resume, you submit your application. Most times now, it seems like you're also going to be submitting a cover letter. Okay, so if you look on page 590 of your book, I would imagine most of you just have the ebook for this, right? That seems to be the trend these days. So 590 is where these start. Okay, you're going to want to address these to a specific person. This is the first thing. Do not use to whom it may concern. Okay, if you absolutely need to, if you do not remember who you interviewed with, or who you're going to be interviewing with, or who the hiring employee is that you're talking to, you need to call the company and ask, or email the company and ask. Find out who this needs to be addressed to. Okay, you don't want to address it to whom it may concern. Okay, make sure you match it up with your resume. So as far as format, so you know, your font type, your font size. If you print your resume on special paper, print your cover letter on that same paper. Okay. I think we talked about earlier in the semester. I would recommend, especially when you're attending these events, you guys will probably, even though you won't be in this class next fall, during the fall, you will be attending the accounting career fair. I would imagine my suggestion, as I made earlier this semester, is to go and get some good heavy paper from like Staples or not Home Depot, but Office Depot. They'll know exactly what you're talking about. They can point you in the direction of resume paper. Okay, it's just a heavier stock paper. Usually it's like off-white or something like that. It just looks much, much nicer. But if you do your resume on that, you need to do a cover letter on that as well. However, most of the time, if you're not in person meeting somebody, you're just going to be attaching these as part of an email, right? So this will be an email attachment, something like that. So in those instances, you just want to make sure that your resumes, your cover letters, they're following the same format. You just want consistency, okay? Do the opposite of what I do in this class. Make sure you are short and concise, get to the point immediately. We'll go over that in the next slide. You're just going to want to hit, basically it's going to be 3 paragraphs. You're going to hit very specific things and you're going to be done. 1 page. Just be concise, get to the point, okay? There is a sample cover letter with formatting. It's provided on page 591. It is different from the one that's on here, but they are very, very similar, okay? So parts of the letter, your address, you're typically going to align that on the right side, okay? This is contact information for you, right? You want to include contact information. This is, you know, a point later in the slide here is that you want to make it easy to set up an interview with you. Okay. You want to include the reader's name, company, and address. That's going to be left aligned, much like everything else in this document. Okay. And then you're going to want to start off your letter with dear Mr., Mrs., Miss, whatever their honorific is. Okay. The content, you want no less than 3 paragraphs, but 3 paragraphs should be fine. Okay. You want to state your intent to apply for the position. Page 590, 591 of the text has some good examples of just kind of templates of if you found this job on the internet, say something similar to this. If you found this job in the classified ads of a newspaper, say something similar to this. They're pretty good templates, actually. You could go through those and just change those around a little bit and have a decent opening, okay? So You also want to tell them why you should be considered. That's kind of the whole purpose behind these cover letters. You want to make them believe that you are the best person for this job, and this is your chance to tell them why. Whereas the resume is just something they're going to look at very quickly, and they're going to be able to ask you questions based on very short bullet points that you've made on your resume, right? Your work experience, your education, GPA, any kind of skills that you may have, all that good stuff that we include in the resume. However, the letter is where you're going to add some meat to the bones of that, right? You are going to be able to explain to them in full sentences why you should be the one that they hire instead of hiring, Mitchell, right? So, because, yeah, that's such a mean looking face, geez. Because let's be honest, although we're all friends in this classroom, you guys are all competing with each other for jobs, right? In the end, if you're staying in the area, if you're moving out of the area, whatever the case may be, you're going to be competing with everybody for a job. And you need to let them know why you are the one that they should hire and not somebody else. Okay. Show them you're willing to work. Just mention having a work ethic, that you're willing to work hard, especially for some of these internships, right? Because here's the brutal honesty of like these tax internships. They're looking for people that need to gain some experience in the real world, some practical tax accounting experience, who are willing to work 60 or 70 hours a week, right? Maybe not with your internship, but if you get a full-time position as a tax accountant, you're going to be working probably 60 hours a week for 4 months, 5 months out of the year. Okay. So you need to let them know you're willing to do that. Do that in your cover letter. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, just make it easy to set up an interview with you. Provide your contact information, right? That closing paragraph of the cover letter is kind of like a call to action. Hey, after our interview, I'm going to call you, or I'll be waiting for your call, or whatever the communication may be. But you've included your contact information at the top of this letter, right? Make it easy for them to find you. You don't want to have convinced them that you are the best candidate for the job, and then they have no freaking clue how to contact you, right? That would not be great. So make sure you make it easy for them to find you, easy for them to contact you, easy for them to set up the interview with you. You always want to kind of go back and describe the position. Make sure they know that you know what you're applying for, right? So the title, what the job does, how your skills are applicable to the requirements of the job and the description of the job, okay? And then you're also going to want to indicate how you learned of the position. This says, again, you can go back to that page 590, 591 on your in your textbook, and it's got good examples of how to convey that information. You know, how I found it, how you found that position. In your closing, you always just want to say sincerely or regards, or just some kind of polite closing sign off for your letter. You want a signature, you can do it in handwritten or in a signature font, but you definitely don't want to just type it out in Times New Roman. Okay, you can see here they just used a font on this example. I know that most laptops or computers these days have some form of touch screen functionality. If you do, typically your word processing software will allow you to create a handwritten signature. That would be my recommendation if you're not going to print these off and sign them. If you're going to be going to like the career fair or whatever, and you're going to be bringing physical copies with you, I would recommend just signing them by hand before you go. Okay. And then you want your typed name, because if you're like me and you write your signature, nobody can actually read what the hell it says, right? So just make sure you do type out your name, and it's so that they know what your name is. Okay. And then optional, if you have a title or you have certifications, or, you know, like most people after they graduate with a master's degree will put, you know, last name, comma, Mac or MBA, or if you have a certification like a CPA or CIA or a CISA or something like that, you want to include that in your signature. Also, if you are attaching another document with your letter, like the resume, then you can just sign off with an enclosure as well. That lets them know that there is something else attached to this cover letter. And that is basically all there is to the format of the cover letters. Okay, so you're going to have 3 paragraphs like we mentioned before, right? Your first one is the position you're applying for. You're going to mention that position, make the description of that position, and the context for how you learned about the job. Okay. So as you can see here in this example, they learned about the job while they were at an accounting club meeting. And so they put that in the first paragraph, right? The second one is going to show your familiarity with the organization, explain the qualifications, all that good stuff, right? So just like when you do an interview, you're going to want to do a little bit of research on the company, know something about that company. I mean, that's exactly what Katie told us last week when she was in here, right? They always like it if you can talk about the company that you're interviewing for. If you have done even just a little bit of research, it typically is going to set you ahead of most of the people you are competing for that job with, right? One thing to note here, if you do not have a wealth of actual work experience, it is okay to highlight your education experience. Again, this is like in the resume where we said, hey, it's fine to make mention of the coursework that you have completed, right? You can do the same thing in your cover letter if you don't have a ton of experience, right? And then third, you're going to have a courteous closing and a suggestion of a response from the reader, right? This is your call to action, right? This is anything you've ever written in a professional sense or an academic setting, you always have a call to action at the end, right? This is your call to action. Hey, after our interview, I'm going to email you, or I'll be waiting for your call or your email or your communication, right? Just kind of a prompt for them to get back to you for it, right? Any questions on any of that? Did not think so. Okay, so one thing we're going to go over just very, very quickly, right? And we don't have a project for this semester because we don't have the career fair, which I think is unfortunate. Typically in my fall class, you have to write a thank you letter to somebody that you talked to at the career fair, right? Or one of the speakers that has come in. Okay, these are very important. Katie, again, mentioned these last week when she was in here speaking to us, right? That they always appreciate getting thank you letters from people. Now, when I was a student, they always said, write the thank you letter by hand and send it because it stands out. Listening to what Katie was saying, you may just want to go ahead and email it, right? Because she said a lot of them just get lost in the shuffle on her desk, and they may not see those letters until 2 weeks after they've already made offers. And had they seen it, they may have made the offer to you. So while it is nice to get those letters sent, right? You may email. I always just emailed mine. I don't know. Maybe I should have been mailing them out, but I always just emailed mine because that just seems to be the form of communication these days, right? You're going to email. They're going to get it quicker. So you're going to want to write thank you letters to recruiters or professionals you meet and interact with at career fairs or other events. Anybody you interview with for internships, leadership positions, summertime leadership positions, full-time positions, anything like that, or anyone who you feel may have substantially helped you with the employment process, right? So if you feel like somebody at the Career Center really helped you when they edited your resume, send them a thank you letter. You know, if you feel like Elizabeth Rager downstairs really helped you with the process, send her a thank you letter, okay? You should always try to write these within a day or so of whatever the interaction was. So the interview, as soon as you get done with the interview, sit down and start writing out a thank you letter and send it to them within the 24-hour period, right? Any questions on that? So they should be short, 2 to 3 short paragraphs, okay? You don't want to take up their whole day, them trying to read an entire novel. You know, you don't want to type up War and Peace for them or anything like that, okay? But you also want to reconvey your enthusiasm and your appreciation. Always address them by name. You're always going to want to call out specific interactions that you had with them. This is all just showing them that you actually cared about the interaction, right? Mention 1 to 2 topics that you discussed, and with a courteous closing. That is always, you know, a courteous closing with a call to action, right? That is always the way we close these things. Okay, so, you know, like here, thank you again for coming to speak to us, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you in the future. Okay. That is really it for this lecture, guys. Pretty simple. Okay. So